Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Lunch and Learn. I'm going to be your host on this February 11th, Gregory Goldston. And the first thing I want to call out here is Submersed, the deep dive live training that we host. It's going to be a 4-day course that is going to go over various parts of the product. We have different people that are going to be teaching different parts of it, and it is just a wonderful event that we welcome you to come out to. It is you're able to register for it online right now at decisions.com, and it will be going on from February 24th through 27th of 2025. Just in case you pull up this video like, a year later, you're looking back, it's like, oh wait, I can do that now. It's like, no, sorry, that was 2025. But that's when it's going on. Please feel free to join if you'd like to. We would really like the people there. So, that's really it as far as announcements goes. I'm assuming you all know about our YouTube channel by now, either the one that you're watching this on, or if you're watching it live, you can go to that link right there and see all of our content. And of course, DocBot is going to be accessible through the support chat all the way back to Decisions version 7. You do not need to upgrade or update in order to access the new DocBot AI called Dart that is available now on your Decisions platform. Unfortunately, that means that the URL to access the DocBot site will be taken down at some point in the near future. Date to be determined. All right. Let me start checking for questions then, because that's all I've got to announce. And while I pull that up, let me switch screens real quick. And this will take me just a moment here. Don't worry about it. There we go. All right. Now we're in the decisions environment. There we go. All right. Let the questions pour in. And we don't have any right now, but that's expected. Okay, so, well, I can go over a little bit of what I have been doing. And the first thing I would like to cover here is the translations that I have been working through. It appears that I deleted the project for it, but I do not need that to show you how this functions. So, in Decisions, you have the ability to turn on in the portal settings what is called translation. Well, if I can spell it correctly, I can do that. There we go. So you have no, yes, and test mode. Test mode is deprecated. Don't use it. So if you turn it to yes and save that, you can now go to locations, go to languages. And over here, you're going to have a master translation list. This gets populated automatically from different forms and pages and different basically user interactive elements in your environment. And I don't just mean user interactive as far as those that are facing, maybe someone that's logging in and just using the website. Developers that or designers will be able to see this stuff as well when they're working in the application. It's a very neat feature, and the way it works is a master list compiles a set of all of these different strings to translate. You can add more yourself by setting it to some sort of variable or some sort of word or phrase that you want to translate to something else in the environment. However, it's a pretty good comprehensive list, and I would start by looking in this first before adding duplicates. From there, you then branch off a language. All right. So you right click, you add a language here, or you can right click here and add a language. And you will provide the name of the language and the HTML code for that language as well. And what that does is that sets up a language that has a list of strings that you can provide translations for based upon the master list. So, for example, if I want to go to Japanese, right, and I want to right click one of these particular strings that's already been auto-populated here from the master list, I can do that, set the translation, I would type in the Japanese word for it, and now wherever you have translation enabled on forms or pages or other interactive elements, you will now see the translated string instead of this one. So it's a very neat feature of Decisions, and I don't think it's widely known how it works because people can tend to kind of look at this and think, oh, let's just make a translation call to like Google Translate or something like that, API call, bring it back. That's what Decisions is doing, right? Not exactly. It's a bit different than that. And on that note, you can't just add strings to the languages. They have to be added to the master translation list in order to have access to them in the languages to provide the translation. Now, how do you know what you're supposed to be translating to in which language? That gets set up in the accounts. So if you go to an account, you can either create a new one or you can edit one. And when you go down here, you're going to have an option to select the language. And it will show you all the languages you've created, as well as the default test language that gets created when you install Decisions. You select the one you want, and now translations for that language will be active for that user. So that's the basics of it. I'll head back to the project now in case we get a question, and not seeing any currently. Well then. Well, another thing that I would like to talk about then, as completely off topic from anything we've discussed so far, is Decision single sign-on, or more broadly, the different authentication methods that Decisions enables or allows for. So when you create an account in Decisions, you specify the email and the password. And although this report does not show it over here, that account has a particular authentication type. When you create account by default, it is going to be the authentication type of password. All right. So make an account. It's an account that is auth by password. And a quick way to check this, by the way, is to go into the query editor, if y'all don't mind following me there. And I'm going to do a simple select query from the account table. Sleek, nope, select. And then I'm not going to specify anything. I'm just going to run this. When you start scrolling over here, you get the account type, right? Person, not system, not machine. But then when you start going over here, you'll see there's authentication type. Password is the default for accounts created. I also have one Active Directory account in here, but that is just a different authentication type that we will discuss at surely another time. But the idea of this is that this is storing information about how the account is supposed to be authenticated when you come into the Decisions platform. However, some people want to configure single sign-on or SSO in Decisions. And you can absolutely do that. It's important to keep in mind that you have to convert the accounts to use that SSO authentication type, or more specifically, Decisions will call it SAML. So the way that you do that is you actually go to identity providers in the system settings. These identity providers are going to give you 3 modules you can install based upon how you're trying to authenticate. SAML is the default markup language for a lot of SSO, including like Microsoft Entra ID or I guess another one isn't coming to mind immediately, but it's commonly used for like Active Directory Federation services. So like if you're setting up your own authentication, your own SSO that's not through a third party, SAML would probably need to be installed for that too. But again, that depends on the language you're transferring the information across. After you've installed the SAML module, you will get a new setting in here called SAML settings. As soon as you enable this, you have access to add all of the details of the identity provider of the external service that authenticates your account instead. So instead of Decisions checking its database and saying, hey, okay, I see your password, you're good to go, Decisions is going to outsource, if you will, the work of authenticating to that external service that you specify. You have to provide a login URL, which is going to be provided by the external service, not Decisions. This is the login URL that users would be directed to complete their login from your external service. Logout can be handled in a variety of ways, and I think that's a little bit beyond what I'd like to talk about right now. But the idea is you want to configure, if you want to configure a particular URL that logs out users, that directs them to that. When you select log out in Decisions, you can do that as well. You have to provide the entity ID, which again, I'm not going to go into the details of that because that is more provided by whatever your external user is, not from Decisions itself. Though I do believe Decisions has its own documentation if you were to use that. You have to specify an X509 certificate to make sure you can authenticate this way. You have to authenticate with the authentication method, that just, yeah, that's how that works. But yeah, that is the basic premise of how you set this up. And once this is completed, this will get put up here under the different identity providers, and you have to select a primary one. The last thing you need to do, once you have your accounts converted to SAML, all of your information set up properly here, the last thing that you must do is you must go to the settings XML, which I don't have access to at this very particular second. But from there, there is a line in the settings XML called Enable Single Sign-On, and you would set that to true, restart Decision Services, and now users should be able to log on with single sign-on, provided that the identity provider has the right settings for those users as well, such as having them in the proper security groups, give them access to access this Decisions URL, and whatever needs to be configured on that side of things. One thing to note, and an important one, you typically want to keep at least one admin level password account available in case something happens with the single sign-on provider and you need to get into the Decisions environment. So you don't want to convert all of them. You want to leave at least one admin account that can log in via password in case something needs to be done. And you would add a very particular URL path after your base portal URL that lets you access Decisions from a password login page rather than get directed to the SSO page. You can disable this, I should mention, if you don't want users seeing that. We recommend still having a way to access that, though, in case there were a problem that occurs. Also, even if users can see it, they still can't log in because their accounts would be SSO, not password, so they couldn't do anything from there. But yeah, there's a quick SSO rundown. And I'm seeing that we still don't have any questions after that. So if we don't get anything in the next probably less than a minute, honestly, we might just call this early.
I can share some stuff too, Gregory, if you want to. If I think I have some stuff that's kind of cool.
Sure, absolutely. Let me stop sharing.
So, hello everybody. This is Robert. Um, cool. I know that yesterday and the last couple of days we've been talking about a lot of 9.7 stuff, so I won't bore you with that. But just some other stuff I think is kind of cool. And some of this I've actually gotten from Gregory. Um, just stuff that I think is interesting, that I didn't know existed and is kind of niche. There's not a lot of stuff on documentation about it, but you might find useful in your kind of framework of how you set up decisions on your server, the installation, and all that stuff. There's just a couple steps that I think are interesting. And again, I got these from Gregory, so this is actually a his thing. But some of these steps are could be really useful in making sure that you are maintaining the health of your installation and the server that you are installed on or against. So get free space, get total disk space, get free RAM, get total RAM. All four of these steps have no inputs. They're simply outputs. So it's just you can't really mess it up. But again, we can get all of that data. We can get the decisions framework number, install it against, and then I have all this set up to show up in a pop-up designed around the same way. But just, a useful thing if you're trying to learn here on this Lunch and Learn. As you see here, I'm on my laptop right now where I'm installed. I have 471 total disk, around 16 gigs of total RAM, and what I'm utilizing at the current moment. Notice how free RAM is formatted in megabytes. That is by default. So if you wanted to do that conversion, you would just do it by 10, I believe. And it would get you there. Another thing that can be super useful for you that you may not know about is in the form tile world, something I've been kind of working on, is form tiles can be really useful, and you can do a lot to parse data and input it into a form tile, as well as do a lot with the data outside of that form tile. So on a dashboard, you can place a form tile. So I have two up here. And the thing to kind of consider is that with form tiles, rather than one flow living inside of one form living inside of one flow. With form tiles, you are given an input flow to parse data. Then you have a form that you're going to select, and then you have an output flow as well to utilize that data. And whenever you add inputs and outputs to those form, it will show up automatically in the corresponding flow. So as I add inputs into this form, such as name or email, those will show up as inputs into the red end step here. It's about to get very loud here. It'll automatically populate that way. So you populate data however you want to fetch it. And then on the output, you can utilize that data however you might want. And then I sent a refresh by folder event and what that looks like in use. And again, this will kind of be on YouTube here in the next couple days. It's like this. And these are page context aware. So you can utilize form tiles to update a report, but something along these lines as I go through and I say, Robert Grauer, and I put in some kind of email, let's say my work email, say, hey, I contacted this customer. I will then show up down here as a part of that. And that's what that send refresh event does. Send follow-up email is a similar process, but it takes input data from here, but that's useful. But as Gregory said, I think I might end it too, because it's about to get very loud in my direct vicinity. So
No
if anyone has
worries.
any questions,
If you
I'll
got a
gladly take them,
question,
but okay, cool. I'm going to mute myself then.
no, you got it. And I'll take over the screen share and we will get to answering your question, Alexander. Let me hold on. All right, moving it back over to mine real quick. Give me just a moment here. All right, I think you can see my screen pretty clearly here. Alexander, let me unmute you real quick, and then we will discuss your question just to get a little bit more clarity. All right, can you talk now?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes. What you got?
Great. So I'm trying to promote from dev to UAT, but UAT is running on a different version of decisions. And I wanted to know how to basically go about doing that. I've never done promotions for starters, and then also I've never had to promote when there's like a difference in versions. And I wanted to know if that's doable without breaking anything.
Um, that depends on the answers to these next few questions. One, when you say different version, do you mean different major version or minor version? Like we talking 9.2 to 9.3, or are we talking version 8 to version 9?
We're talking version 8 to version 9.
Okay. Then no further questions need to be asked. That is not going to function properly. And the reason why is because of how projects work in version 8 versus version 9. In version 8, and I'm assuming your devs in V9.
Yes, my dev is in V9.
Okay. So what would happen is you've converted all of your projects from version 8 versions to version 9 versions in your development environment. Once those have been converted, they now separate out and have their particular functionality within the platform, right? So all of your scheduled jobs that you're promoting with those projects are going to be at the project level now and not at a universal one, which I'm assuming you made these here, right? Did you make your scheduled jobs in a project?
My scheduled jobs.
You said you're promoting jobs?
Well, yeah, I'm taking one. I want to push it to from dev to UAT.
Right.
Mine flows.
When you mean jobs, do you mean scheduled jobs or are you talking about something else?
Oh no, I just meant flows. I just call them jobs.
Oh, gotcha. All right, cool. Yeah. So what would happen? Do you know if your repo's on V8 or V9?
Ooh, that's a good question. How would I find that out real quick?
You would log into your repository. You click the right top here, hit about, and it'll tell you the version.
Okay, hold on. Where did you? Hold
Yep.
on.
So once you're logged into your repo, you'll have your little user icon on the top right.
Okay.
Click about, and then it will show you the platform version.
Let's see. Platform version 9.3 is what my dev environment is.
All right. So dev is 9.3. That makes sense. And then here's where things get tricky, right? So if your repo is in version 9.3. And then you push it there. The repo now has that project deployable from 9 version 3 trying to go into version 8. Version 8 isn't going to know how to process that project that is now set apart, because the only scheduled jobs that version 8 knows is going to be at the system level, right? It doesn't have any context that there are different jobs in different projects in that way. That's not just for scheduled jobs, though. For any sort of flows, because of that conversion process, the only way to properly have that export from the repo into a version 8 environment, well, I guess the answer is there really isn't a safe way to do it. It's probably best to have your UAT upgraded to match development in order for that to work, especially match repository on that matter, because sometimes it'll make concessions going from dev to repo on minor versions. Like if your repo is 9.1 and your dev is 9.3, that may or may not work, that we don't recommend it, but trying to go from version 9 to version 8 with a project is almost certainly not going to function.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're saying that I need to bring up my UAT environment up to standard and then push forward.
That would be the best. That would be how we recommend it, both as a former support member and as a training team member. That is what I would recommend.
Okay, could you show the normal way of how we would, let's say they're the same, just because I don't also have knowledge on how to,
Oh,
click.
sure, absolutely. Yeah. So, first of all, do you have repository connected?
Possibly.
I'll show you. The way you do that is you go to settings, you go to designer repository settings, and then you would go into here, make sure that this has the proper repository server IP address, however you connect to it over, right?
Yep, it's connected.
Yep. And then you want to make sure show repository actions is also checked, because if that's not checked, you won't have any of the actions in dev to actually do the moves.
Yep, it's clicked, yeah.
Perfect. All right. Then if you're trying to deploy a whole project, it's very simple. If you're in a lower version of 9, you click the 3 dots here and you're going to have designer repository actions, right? If you are in a higher version of 9, you simply click check in or check out. Check in will push the project to the repo. Check out is how you pull a project from the repo. So for here, if I wanted to check this in, I would provide a commit message. This would check in everything in the project. And then as soon as I provide this LNL demo, we'll call it that. And you can see everything that's checked off in here, right? As far as the different projects go. And then I would hit commit. And now it is checked into the repository under this revision number. You can then go to your UAT that's on version 9, select checkout, and then pull that project. You'll actually see all the projects that you have checked in there. Select that project, and you can either pull out the latest version or select a very particular revision of that project to pull out into UAT. And that would be how you do a standard deployment.
Okay.
Obviously, if you don't want to include some details, that it gets a little bit more complicated, because then you have to like make an update here, check it in. Maybe you want to revert back a branch. You'd go into the repo and say roll back to this revision so that we don't have this broken updated version. But that is the basics of how you push from one environment to another.
Okay, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, no, we try to make it that way. That's the goal of this. We don't want this to be complicated, because if you don't have a repo, the only way you're doing it then is you're clicking this, you're clicking export, and then you're just downloading in the other one and praying it works, and no dependencies were lost. So that's why we recommend the repo route on this.
Okay, we do have a repo, and it
Cool.
is set up.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
that would be how you do that. Definitely good to test that with UAT before pushing directly to prod. And then for prod, you still have that same project in the repository. So there's no need to push in the UAT project again, right? Then pull it out to prod. If you didn't make any changes on UAT, there's no reason to do a double push in for the same project and then pull out on prod. So Just save you some space there.
So wait, I could do what? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So, dev, right? Let's say we push in the project for dev. I need annotation. That would make things so much easier. Give me a moment. Where'd that go? Aha, here we go. All right. You know what? I clicked it and I don't actually see where it went. So that is not fun. Give me a moment. Do I have to expand this? Is that why I can't see it? Or do I have to actually select it? Click. No. Okay. Well, annotate isn't functioning for me, but don't worry about it. We can still go over how this works here. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay. So you've got your dev environment right here, right? This is your big repo, your big warehouse right here, storing everything. And then over here, you've got your UAT. And then over here, you've got production, right? So if you are pushing in a project from dev to the repo, that project will reside in here, right? And then you're going to check it out from dev to UAT. UAT does their thing, they do their testing, right? If UAT doesn't change anything and says this is good to go, there is no need to push the project back in and then back out on production, right? Because then you're just making two copies of the project with different revisions and you're taking up unnecessary space. Instead, you just take that same dev project, check it out to prod.
Oh, okay. So when I push up to the repo, any one of these can pull it down.
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
It's not gone from the repo. It takes a copy of it and pulls it into that environment.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, typically, best design practices, if there is a problem in UAT, hey, make the fix on dev, push it again, overwrite the project, bring it back to UAT until there isn't a problem,
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
Okay,
that's the basic process.
great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right. Anyone else have any further questions? I don't think we've had anyone join since Alexander, and I haven't seen any questions from them, so I think we're just going to call it early, y'all. So, appreciate y'all for coming. Thank you all for joining this Lunch and Learn, and we hope to see you later. Also, in the chat, forgot to mention this, Jared also posted one of our YouTube videos discussing how to check in and check out things from the repo and how the repo functions in decisions. All right. Thank y'all.